Challah Perek Daled Mishnah Vav. The Tiferes Yisrael writes about this Mishnah, Zoisi Mishnah Chamura. This is a hard Mishnah. V'rabu bo pirushim, and there are many explanations, and those explanations themselves are not that easy. I'd like to explain this Mishnah based on the Pirush of Rabbi Yosef Ashkenazi, mentioned in the Mesechet Shlomo. Rabbi Yosef lived at the time of the Arizal in the 16th century. Some Amei Ha'oretz, people who are not that well versed, and some not that meticulous in taking Trumas and Maasros, would have taken from their crops or from their bread and dough, they would take Truma Gedola, but not the other Trumas and Maasros. Truma Gedola they would take because there was a chiyuv misa b'dei shamayim if someone ate the crop without taking Truma Gedola intentionally. And also it was very easy, just by taking the smallest amount, min haTorah, one can be makayim the mitzvah of taking Truma. But other Trumas, Maasros, Challah, some Amei Ha'oretz were not that particular. The majority were. But as there was a sizable amount of Amei Ha'oretz that didn't, therefore the Chachomim said that if a person buys challah, in our example, dough or bread from an Amei Ha'oretz, then challah must still be taken. If this dough or bread was tomei, and now one wants to take challah for it, what should one do? The Mishnah suggests the following way. One should take a separate dough, one's own toher dough, take off a portion which would be the required shear for challah for that particular dough, but not call it challah quite yet. Then one could take dough from one's own dough on behalf of particular demai dough and continually do that. Finally, one would say and take one's dough that one had set aside previously and say, I want this dough to be challah on behalf of my whole dough. How did this work? If the demai, or if from this demai challah had already been taken, then when one was taking dough as challah for the demai, one is taking something which is a chiyuv, because this whole dough, no challah had been taken from it yet, onto something where challah had been taken, and that doesn't work. If, however, challah had not been taken, then the challah that one would be taking on behalf of that demai would work. But in the case where it wouldn't work, because challah had already been taken from the demai, one had that extra piece that one had taken previously, and after taking all those doughs and calling them challah on behalf of that demai, one would take one's initial piece and say that should be challah on behalf of my dough. So even if the challah was not taken on behalf of the demai, because the demai itself, challah had already been taken, one had the final position of taking challah, or the challah that one had taken initially, would be on behalf of all one's dough, and therefore one's dough plus the piece which was challah would all go to the kohen, just in case it was all actually challah. Let me say this in the Mishnah. Noitel adam kedei challah. A person would take a shear of challah me'isosh lo hurma chalosa, from a dough where challah had not yet been taken. La soisa batara, enabling this person then to take from the dough lios mafrish oleo v'choilech chalas damai, to take from it challah for the damai. So again, he would take the piece challah on behalf of the dough, not call it challah yet, but wait until he'd taken all these doughs and said they were challah on behalf of the damai. When he'd finished doing that, he would then name that initial piece challah on behalf of those doughs in case they needed challah to be taken from them. And he could do this ad sheti sorach, until this dough that he had initially was spoilt, not an isa, which was not ru'uya lamachal adam, it wasn't fit for human consumption. Once it gets to that stage, one cannot take challah, use it as challah on behalf of another dough. As we said, this applied even if the demai was tomei and one was taking tohar dough because one wanted to have challah which was tahira. How could one do this? Why? Because shechalas demai, challah that one's taking for demai, niteles min hatohar al hatomei. Even if the demai is tomei, one can take tohar dough and use it as challah and demai for the demai. Even though we have learned previously, earlier Mishnayos, that one was not allowed to take from tohar dough onto tomei dough. And the reason for that is because they had to be in close proximity, and one was scared that the tohar dough maybe would touch the tomei dough, and therefore maybe the tohar dough would become tomei itself. This was in the normal cases. But as demai, the vast majority of people had in fact taken challah, therefore they were more lenient, and they allowed challah to be taken from demai, min hatohar al hatomei, even if the demai was tomei, from something which was tohar, v'shalo min hamukaf, even if it wasn't close by, that was still good enough, as I say, because the majority of people, the vast majority of people, had already taken challah from the demai. Therefore they had these leniencies.